Dear ladies and gentlemen, if there is odd one out, here I am with my non-Asian topic due to some obstacles. But my theme is, what we need is objective criticism. I suppose you haven't overlooked the headline of my speech. Because, well, and first of all, I would like to ask you, should I go or stay? Well, why do I question myself? The answer is as simple as moving the goalposts in a contemporary society. Well, I'm afraid to stay here. I'm a bundle of nerves because that's the first time such a huge audience have come here either to listen to me or at least just to pretend listening to me. Anyway, thanks for coming and let's start the ball rolling. Well, TED Talks are considered to be astonishing, inspirational, overwhelming, full of smiles, etc. Everyone knows it. Furthermore, the more it spreads, the more it broadcasts, the further it spreads, and the more and more people are keen on this. Well, that's great for those who produce, tell, and even listen to, owing to a brilliant opportunity of regarding anything from different angle. However, what I'm concerned about is almost constant shortage of criticism. Well, I would have narrated something inspirational, sustainable, attracting, genius, sexy, and even other evergreen topics. But I got off the beaten track and chose another option which seemed to me far more debatable than talking about all these hackneyed, tired ideas about happiness, being alone, how to deal with that, and so on. Well, and some of us are in the field, somehow linked up with journalism. So let me give some examples where objective criticism is desperately needed, because the main mission of this trade is to debunk and to reveal. Actually, there are a significant number of editions that observe, and even at our university we have one that observe all mass of formality, generate permanent pathos, pay lip service, do all kinds of showy workmanship, and all this exists only for, I'm trembling, I'm stuttering despite the fact that I don't have any speech impediment, because I don't know the exact purpose for which they exist. Well, to make my concern a little bit clear, I would like to take our faculty's magazine, newspaper, Internationalist, MEDZHIDOV, as an example, which embodies the spirit of the problem I am talking on. Well, and don't accuse me of being so hypocritical, because the only thing I attempt to convey is that there is an urgent need to think deeply of what are you doing, how resourceful you are, and what is the goal for which you stand. Well, actually, every newspaper, every issue has a thing that in Russian, we tend to call подвал. And подвал is considered to bring change, to develop something. But the problem is that in such bureaucratic issues, this important thing is buried. And to clarify that, what is buried is our talents. Well, in all likelihood, I will be executed after delivering this speech. But nobody will shatter my belief, even at this university, that this thing, международный, urgently something like perestroika, but not in the way Gorbachev did. Well, those who are involved into the process of creation and devote a lot of time to writing and rewriting an article, well, this part is precisely for you. I'm going to disappoint you, but this thing is mostly bureaucratic and unreadable. Just to prove that once upon a time I was reading an article of a friend of mine, and then I got a feeling that I just swallowed a piece of paper written by an outstanding man. Well, what I intend to underline, to clarify for you, is that this issue has intentionally preferred executive values to genuinely journalistic ones. For whom? Hands up who catches up with every material, cutting and gluing it on his or her wall. Pure silence, I suppose. And that is why the editor-in-chief of this issue isn't standing right now in front of the General Assembly of the United Nations by saying and somehow cosplaying Donald Trump, my staff has accomplished more than almost any staff in the history of our faculty. Well, and I have a question. Why do these people write circulations on the last page? Just to count the number of basic paper or for what? I have no idea. Nevertheless, I know how to make some profit from this. Just give it to me, and my grandfather's bathhouse will be equipped with the fuel for the whole winter period. You know, winter has come, sanctions are coming, prices of fuel are increasing, and that is why I need some fuel, and my dad, my grandpa, will be glad. So, now a blast from our media classes. Here's one quotation dedicated to British press. Entire newspapers are filled with tired old puns, jaunty and routine hyping. What is ridiculous here is that the taken edition doesn't have any hyping, and I don't mean any political disagreements. And no way will they print on the front page something like Putin is of Putin, because it has no sense. But in my humble opinion, it can't be called journalism. And despite the fact that the reputation of this trade is enormously soiled, people can't help wheedling by making an interview with a prominent person, even with the official spokeswoman of the Ministry of International Affairs of our country, an interview which includes 4 or 5 unfulfilling answers. Well, in my humble opinion, it can't be called journalism. All over the time, I've been studying there at MGIMO such prominent journalists as Belinsky, Gertsen, and Pisarev are considered to have contributed a lot to this field. Indeed, they wrote brilliant articles calling on government to carry out some reforms or to even to subvert the regime, and it brilliantly shows that they had audacity, and what nowadays journalists have is very uncertain. Well, I have a question once again. In this context, why do professors narrate and dedicate a lot of time to them if the only thing we are taught is to write non-interesting articles whose audience is limited by our mothers? That's true. Of course, those people exaggerated a lot, contorted the truth, but, well, at least they had audacity, and the question is, who is the virtuous one? They must have managed to be called journalists. Well, let's turn to another field. I suppose almost everyone must have heard on the grapevine that the forward of Zenit St. Petersburg and the midfielder of the Krasnodar football club, Kokorin and Mamayev, were jailed, and nowadays they are waiting for judicial proceedings. Well, I'm not going to debate furiously on what they did, because all these actions are terrible, heinous, and beyond imagining. Anyway, what I underlined from this group is the fact that people have pounced on them and wait for bread and circuses. I don't imagine what these guys feel while almost everybody around yells demanding public execution. Evidently, it is them who is guilty and should be punished. The issue isn't only the amount of money they have in their pockets, but about our attitude to such situations. I keep wondering whether the court sentenced them being under constant society's pressure just to show once again that our judicial system feels free to make such big plantings. What I stand for is to leave our assumptions and prejudices at home and pin our hopes on the fact that justice is done. And don't forget that it is the court who is claimed to sentence in our country. And the problem is that people generally prefer leaving their own sins at bed while consuming avidly such scandals. And this consuming goes viral and is being maintained by mass market media. Well, in this context, open your eyes up. We are in the 21st century, and the Colosseum is the place to be visited as the museum, not as the place where people are sentenced to be executed. I don't know whether this speech will be useful or no, but I'm profoundly convinced that that what I've talked on is important, essential, and all these cool words. Why? Because I want our society to have a little bit more objective criticism without a discount on age, without a discount on social status, and the most important thing, without a discount on the amount of money someone has in his or her pocket. The idea is not to tear somebody apart, because it will never work out, but to criticize as objectively as possible, not to stifle and stigmatize people, but to improve the situation and to enrich a thing that is criticized. Well, instead of calmness, dispute, prove your point, because that's the only way to go on and make your product live and prosper. Thanks.